Yo, welcome to Networking with Nathaniel, a podcast that I do every Wednesday live at noon Eastern time. This is a place where I talk to real estate investors, entrepreneurs alike about their journeys, where they've been, where they're at, where they're going, and how they can provide value to us as real estate investors and entrepreneurs ourselves. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you guys Coach Kevin, as we like to call him. I've known him for about 6 months now or so through the Growth Co., Jesse Stanton, and beyond. We met a little over a month ago at the Unleash and Invest event. And man, this guy's done a lot of stuff already in his short time on this planet, and he's got a lot of stuff that he's doing and working on. I'm excited to introduce him. Kevin.
What's happening, team?
Thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate you. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. You?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's exciting to have you on. I've had a lot of other people on. I've never had Coach on before.
Woo!
So we're gonna dive into all that stuff. Yeah, buckle up. I know Coach Kevin is a wealth of information, and one thing I know is that once we get him started, it's tough to slow down sometimes. So we're going to do our best to kind of just keep the process flowing. But here's the thing about Kevin is you don't necessarily want to stop him once he's going, because he just gives you value after value after value. Yeah.
Or wait, it's hard to live up to all of a sudden. Now I'm really going to have to bring the gems.
You got it. You don't have to try. It just kind of flows out of you naturally. Would you kind of give, I did briefly say that you've been into a lot of stuff. Would you just kind of give an introduction of real quick what you've been into and where you're at right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the mercilessly brief overview of Coach Kevin. So let's see. So started out way back in my college years, had a lot of stuff going on with like school and whatnot, but I wanted to earn some money on the side. I had read a book like my senior year of high school, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Many people had read that book, right? Boom, opened my eyes up and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I going to college to get a W-2 job? But found out like there's a lot of need right near where I was at that people had for their commercial businesses needing cleaning, because a cleaning company had went under. And I thought, well, I'll do that. So I started a cleaning company. Worst business I'd ever been in up to date. Not because that the service was, hard to perform. It was really the management of folks that weren't committed. Okay. I hired a bunch of high school students. If you've ever been a high school student working a job, it's probably not your first priority, or that you're just over the moon, excited about the mission, right? You're just doing something to get a paycheck. So very hard to manage. From that, finished college, get into the financial world, worked for a bank, which I will choose to keep nameless. Just think of a stagecoach. That'll give you a little direction.
Yeah.
And in working that, I was in 2007, 2008, that kind of range. I'm given basically anybody that can fog a mirror, any sort of product or service. Now I'm 20 some years old, had no idea what I was doing other than this is what they wanted me. I need to be a good employee. I need to go perform this. And so I'm just selling. Come to find out, that's probably not the best in everybody's situation if we don't take the human into account and what might happen from a macro level. We all know what happened in 2008. People were getting adjustable rate mortgages. All of a sudden things shift. Now those rates aren't able to be. So this is my first introduction to how capital stack and how not just acquiring assets in real estate, but looking at the capital, like the stack of financial pieces that make that thing perform, really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I found out from just watching everything crumble, watching stuff really shift in my life. I went from that into working for my uncle after getting basically fired during that phase of time in 2008. I worked for a construction company with my uncle, who he had owned it for like 30 years down in Austin. Did that for a while. That was amazing to learn, figure out how a multi-million-dollar business works with a bunch of ragtag guys that don't really even look that professional, talk like a tailor. But if you have enough demand, which Austin was growing like a weed at that time, still is, you can make all kinds of money. But wasn't passionate about the work. We were cutting concrete. Instead, I went up to Montana for a little bit, where my uncle had a second home, and I loved it. Loved that summer I was up there. we were actually kind of slowing down a little bit with work. And I just asked myself, like, do I want to go back to the heat and what's going on there? Or would I really like to stay here? And I looked everywhere to find a job out here after my first summer here. It was magical. I was like kayaking, mountain biking, doing a bunch of stuff. And I landed a job in Missoula, Montana at the housing authority. The Missoula Housing Authority needed somebody to do financial work. I had a little bit of background between college and some of what I did with banking, kind of aligned, but that wasn't it. But man, oh man, that was just magical how I came in right at a time where they were looking to go from several hundred units under management, with like, not just like units that they have, but like voucher program, bunch of different things going on for affordable housing programs. And they were looking to take in-house the development all by themselves. So basically have the nonprofit side working with all the different programs. Also, instead of handing out developers fee and trying to manage somebody else that's doing the construction, why don't we bring that in-house? Because they were having some friction with some of the contractors, like the GC and stuff. It would be more aligned if we were just all one company and we were all the same team. And so I just came in at the right time, and it slingshotted me into understanding what's going on when you have 2-3 acres and you're tasked with how do we have the best and highest use to bring housing, specifically affordable housing, into play. And I learned a ton, not just about private financing, but also the different funding layers that are out there. So my role was a lot of the work with the financial side. We have, let's say 2-3 acres, maybe it's given by the city or we find it to buy. Then they task me with, well, how do we get 50, 60, 100 units, and what's going to play out better? And I would work to help get that under contract, move that forward. Once we get into construction, manage the day-to-day of what's going on with, here's the budget, here's what we need for the project. Okay, each draw, did we get the work done? I'm going through that whole process. Now, over that time, I was there for 6 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
I didn't necessarily get any equity. I didn't get any cash flow. I just got a W-2 paycheck. But I was very, very thankful of what we got to create for that, the community of Missoula where I live, the lives of the tenants. When you have all these different walks of life, like folks that are seniors, folks that may have mental health, background with like trauma or abuse, houseless veterans, like there's all these different sub-segments. It really opened my eyes that there's many different things going on in our communities, and it's not just a one thing. Like I just didn't quite know, and I would just blanket it. Oh, those folks over there. But man, oh man, it's not one thing, it's many things. And I need to be more aware of what's going on in my community if I'm going to provide a service, specifically housing, to help people.
Yeah.
So went from there, got into software, specifically in housing. We did software around title services, marketing for those title agencies and whatnot. That was great. From there, went into podcast marketing. I'll just kind of skip over that part. It was great. Did a lot of stuff. Was a lot of fun. This is where, like, if you get at the timing of a wave before it hits, you look like a genius, even if you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I just timed it at the right time.
Yeah.
So, worked with a bunch of big names. You guys probably know them, like the serial S-Town kind of murder mystery stuff, or like some of the big names in like business or health, like any of the top 50. Take a grouping of folks between 2015 and 2021. Most of those big names are folks I worked with.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
For one capacity or another. Now I do coaching. Coaching has been something I've been doing over the last 7 years. I was actually just tapped on the shoulder by one of my podcast clients and said, hey, we need a coach. You've done a lot of personal development work, a lot of leadership development work. We need somebody like you. I would love to have you in as one of our first coaches. I just said, awesome. I just want you guys to do well. You're a great client. I'll help you out in some way. Thinking that it was just going to be a part-time thing till they find somebody. Fell in love with it. And now I've been working with folks specifically around alcohol-free living and executive coaching to give a little different spin on folks that want to walk an alcohol-free path. I've been 16 years alcohol-free. It's worked really well for my life. I'm not saying that you have to do anything like that, but in learning that and being around other executives, entrepreneurs, CEOs, a lot of high net worth individuals, it's fascinating to see that folks, even at a high level, they're playing at a big game. A lot of folks in real estate that I work with don't necessarily have it all together in every area of their life. I like to joke that it's idiots all the way up.
Yeah.
people that are 8, 9, 9-figure, even like a billionaire that I've worked with some folks that, they crush it in some areas of their life, but they don't have it all together in every area of their life. So when we look outward and see like, oh, that person's amazing, I would love to be them. Watch out. Their life may not be all together in all areas. In fact, I don't know anyone that has it all together in all areas, but it really helped me to see that you can still be really good in one area, but there's going to be work needed no matter what level you're at.
Yeah.
So that's the mercilessly brief overview. A lot of stuff going on. Now we take some of the, coaching doesn't have a lot of write-offs. So we take some of the profits and move that over into the area of real estate, something I know about, specifically in areas of like land development or land flipping that helps me get in front of potential projects. I also put some funds into multifamily. So that's a little bit of a brief overview, but
that's
we can go much deeper on that.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good. There was a couple of things there. Lastly, I guess, being that it's good to know, what you just said about the people that we're like looking up to, right? We see, especially on social media, we see the good side of everything, but we don't always see what's going on behind the curtain. And sometimes you're like, hey. And then when the camera's off, you're just like down, right?
Totally.
So, it's something that I talk about in my Facebook group a lot, the Healthy Wealthy Family through real estate, is that like there's these big areas of our lives that we should be really focusing on. And for me and the people that we brought in, it's the health, the family, and the wealth, right? And so we talk about real estate all the time, but what are we doing in those other aspects to make a full life for ourselves? Because I've mentioned it on this podcast probably more than people want to hear, is like, if I build this $1 million business and everything's going great in my business, but 15 years from now I look at my kids and they look back at me like I'm a stranger, what the heck was the point, right? Like so you kind of appear over this shoulder, but like,
I got a glimpse of one.
The little bump, the belly bump. Yeah.
Family as you speak.
Yeah, exactly. So like, if the same thing goes for that relationship as well. Like if I put all my time and effort into building this business and then 20 years from now, I don't know my wife anymore. Like, why did I do all this stuff? So that was the first thing I did. I want to definitely get to the coaching part. I think this is something that you're super passionate about and very well versed in. It along the lines of that, kind of peeking behind the curtain is something that we did the first day of Unleash and Invest. Like, I think it was the first thing we did as a full group. Is you brought us up into a circle, and I don't remember all the questions that you asked, but they were like, who's done a deal before, who's just getting into this, and having people step into the circle, and you're looking around and going, okay, there's this many people, and then you ask, who's depressed or has been depressed before, who has been angry, like all these different things. And then you're stepping into the circle and you're going, oh, I'm not alone here. We're all sharing this human experience together. And so it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or you're just getting started in your journey right now. Like there are things that we can share and we can, there's a word here.
Right.
Yeah. Connect with each other. So, as far as the coaching goes, how the heck did you get into this? Is this something you just stumbled into? Is this something that you were pushed by some other people that you were friends with? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I would say I was in coaching before coaching was cool. That would probably be the way to put it. Like before a lot of people had even done coaching as a student or as a participant. Some of like with podcast marketing. Okay. Some of what we would do is raise the awareness, get audience members, grow their listening. And a lot of those folks with podcasts wanted to then monetize that audience by giving back either products, services, software, whatever it was that might help their life. And some of those podcasts had coaching programs related to the area. And so I just had a good friend of mine, one of my very first clients. He had an alcohol-free challenge that he wanted to turn into a program. And he knew that I was alcohol-free. He was also alcohol-free about the same number of years. We really aligned on that when we got together on how it's really changed our life. And I had done a bunch of personal development work. I'd gone through like leadership coaching, a bunch of like emotional intelligence programs. Basically at that point, I had like over $100,000 in different programs and courses and stuff that I'd been doing. And so I basically had like a mini MBA of personal development.
Yeah.
And I'd never coached before. Most coaches are like, I want to go help other people do this thing. I wasn't that at all. In fact, I was really scared when he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I need somebody to help support one of our group calls. I feel you would be great for it." And I was like, oh, I don't know. I've never been in front of the mic. I was kind of the integrator on the back end, helping other podcasters who are like the star, the visionary, the one out there like sharing things. Like we're basically an integrator for hire. And so being in the hot seat and sharing was really foreign to me. So it wasn't really natural per se, but I just gave back what worked for me and what it helped, and what worked for me in the personal development, in the leadership development, in the area about alcohol-free living. So I would just say I never had a original thought in my life. I'm just basically repeating back things that made a difference for me, often giving credit where it was due. Hey, this book or this author or this speaker or this particular coach I worked with said this, and that really helped. But now fast forward, after I've been into it, like I've worked with over 1,000 one-on-one clients. I've probably had thousands when you look at group calls and stuff like that, but really get it intimate in people's lives, like thousands of hours of coaching over, I don't even know what it is, 8-9 years, something like that. And so that's a long time of seeing patterns of people. I don't say it to brag or impress. I'm just saying when you have that big of a group set, you see that there's a lot of patterns. So what you talked about with like, there's these different areas of life. Not every area of life is made of the same substance or material. So if I think about the guy that can spin plates or the gal that can get these like, plate spinning. You ever seen those folks that are like, they're balancing all these different drumsticks and they're spinning plates
on their nose.
Kind of like that with these different areas of our life where we're putting attention to. It's like, if I go give attention to like my business, okay, we're going to get this thing spinning and really humming. Oh shoot, I've been neglecting my health over here. And then we're getting this thing spinning, and my relationship, I gotta have date night, gotta have time with my kids. And we're doing these different areas of my life. And so I can only have my attention really in certain places at once. I can't have it all together. So that was really helpful for me to understand, is like, you're going to move your awareness in different places at different times of what's needed. And so you'll get something going, but by the time you get something going, I got to go back over here and get this other thing going.
Yeah.
But also what really helped is one of those plates, let's say it's like work, maybe made of a different substance than like my intimate partnership. And if I let work fall, it might be made of like a rubber plate. It might bounce, fall, but it didn't totally break and fall apart. I can get it back going. I can get it up again. No problem. We'll just pick up, start a little bit from scratch, get the momentum going. But some things like an intimate partnership might be like really fine crystal. Like it might fall, break, and never come back together in the same way. So that I want you to take away with is, don't think of these buckets as equal. Some of them are far more delicate. Like I can't necessarily get my health back on track in the same way, which I've worked with a lot of CEOs, executive entrepreneurs, like folks where they got to the top, they make like $1 million in a month or something. Cool. Great. How's your relationship with your kids?
Yeah.
They never talk to me. I don't know if they'll ever talk to me. Or like, you know what? I've had cancer in remission twice now. I don't know if I'm ever going to make sure that this stays in remission. That's scary. I really need to take inventory on like, where are some of these things at that I can't just get back going if I let it go too far, neglected or really abused in many ways. So
I'm glad you steered off the kids one, because I started to get a little teary-eyed thinking about it, because I do a pretty good job, I feel like, at least, of prioritizing that throughout the day. It's like, hey, I'm going to get, even if it's just, I'm going to get a half an hour right now where I put the phone down and I'm going to hang out with them. Like, I'm not going to get this time back, but just the thought of people out there that have devoted their, and like making $1 million a month is fantastic. That's something we should be shooting for, right? But not at the expense of, at least not for me, not at the expense of that. And I love the visualization there too of like, maybe the work plate, you said like rubbery, but maybe it's just a plate that you can, if it falls and breaks, it breaks into really big pieces and you could just easily glue it back together.
totally.
Whereas, the relationship one, like that thing shatters open and you don't even know how the pieces would go back together because there's 1,000 of them. And that's,
or even with work, it might be like, this plate falls, drops, whatever, I get ruined in this industry or this business. You can insert another plate and might still have some fancy for it. You might really like, I shifted industries, did something different. Cool.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm really attached to this one piece, this one relationship, let's say, or my health. It's like, you can never get the same. You ever have like a favorite mug? It's like, oh man, I love this mug. But
Yeah.
then, the handle breaks or it gets a crack. You're like, dang it, that was my favorite mug. Like you really feel it. Like you're really attached to it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my
And
kids.
that can be the same way. It's like these relationships. Yeah, you can go make other relationships,
Yeah.
but you may never have the same relationship that you will have with that specific individual again if you let it go unnurtured. Right? I have to foster those relationships, and it takes work. Basically, the things that we really want in life, let's say it's even $1 million in a month. What good is that if I get the money and I haven't looked at where I'm using that resource to move the experience of life? And so and I've done this many times with the folks I work with, is like, what are you doing this for? What is it all for?
Yeah.
And for a lot of the folks, when they're like drinking and they come to me around their alcohol, it's because they don't want to get present to the stuff that they really need to look at. It's hard. And I'd rather go over here where I get praise, attention. I basically get rewarded by still crushing it with the work. Because I just get, a dopamine hit. I get reward, more money, more praise, more accolade, whatever it is. And then I'm actually not really wanting to look at what's going on with my health or what's going on with these relationships, or really about myself, my relationship to myself.
Yeah.
And like I'm using work to try to fill a hole where I don't feel complete. I don't feel whole. And so I get a lot of folks that they get to a certain phase in business or what be it, and they're like, I thought when I'd get here, I'd arrive. And in fact, I feel emptier because of it. Because now I've got to the top of the mountain and realized, oh shit, it was all for nothing. Excuse my language. Yeah. But that's what they say. They'll talk like a sailor and go, I've screwed up. I've ruined it. Like, what was I thinking? That doing the things in the work was what was important, when really that just enhances all these other areas of my life if I choose to make sure it's a priority.
Yeah.
So when I look at it from that perspective, like what really matters is really getting clear of like, what am I trying to create with these relationships? When's the last time I've really asked myself, where's progress going on with my health? It doesn't even have to just be losing weight. It's like, where's my energy, flexibility? What's going on with these different biomarkers? Like I could be living a much younger life, no matter what my age looks at, if I was just really intentional with what's going on in that category. I mean, that would be the great, like one of the things that I have on my vision board is I'm going to get to being like 55 and everyone's like, no way. That dude, like, no way. You can't, no way. I want to be that guy where like you walk in the room and you're like, that guy is that old? No way.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Where it's like that vibrant that they're like, they can't be like this guy looks like he's like 35.
That's a good goal.
That's going to take intention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not for vanity. It's because I know that if I'm showing up in that vibrant way, yes, that would be a really funny conversation. Like, yeah, okay, yes, I'm really 55. But that would likely mean that I'm probably pretty vibrant. It's not just like I'm really jacked, because if I'm like really tired and jacked, or like I have pain all over the place, that's probably not the best goal to be moving for. But I want it to be where I feel lively, youthful, energetic, that my body is able to move like it's somebody that's in like their 30s. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, it would.
And I'm sure that marker, once I get there, will likely move, and there'll be some different place in my 60s and my 70s. And I work with a lot of folks that are in those age ranges. Time shifts, things change, the priorities shift. One of the big things that becomes apparent to them is their health when they get into those ranges, because quality of life really matters at that stage.
Yeah.
So I'd rather take care of it now while I got the time and invest in what I have now to nurture than to get there and go, oh shoot, I've missed the boat. Now I have to try and do the best with something I really neglected that I don't know if I can get back easily.
Yeah.
So I hope that's a message to other people. Don't get me wrong. The real estate stuff, that's kind of fun. Yes, you can have a lot of, I'm more about like the quality of life for myself though. When I'm looking at that, I don't want to burn myself out. I don't want to be like pissed off that I wasted all these years. Like nobody looks back on, oh man, I wish I would have worked like 40 more hours a week.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I didn't say this in my bio, but like my first job was working at a nursing home for 6 years before, like I was done with college or before I started that cleaning company. Like I was working at a nursing home, 100 residents, got to know them all. Like people would come in, you get really attached to them. Some would have health issues. Some would have dementia. Some would pass away. And to see those later years was really eye-opening. but to hear their stories, whenever they like grab your arm when you're in like the dining hall or in their bedroom, they would stop and they would tell a story. And the story isn't, let me tell you how freaking awesome I was in business, or let me tell you like how I wish I would have worked more. It's always something about relationships. Relationships really matter. So when you're looking back, those experiences, you can't get those back. You can't replace them. And if that's what somebody thinks of in those later years, what am I doing if I'm neglecting them?
Right.
What a waste.
Yeah.
I think I want to get to the end of this life and look at and see like, who did I become? Man, oh man, what memories did I create with other people? Because it'd be really empty if I took all the people out of my life and still went for the business and still went for even some things with my health and all that stuff. It would be so empty if we didn't have other people adding to the experience. And the quality of those people, the relationship that we share together, the quality that we share together in those experiences. So be careful about your environment. Be careful who you choose to spend your time with. Your time is the most valuable asset, but what adds to it, I would say, is large in part of relationships and then how I'm able to show up as a human. All right, I know I'm going kind of deep on some of these, but
that's
I'll let
what
you drive a little bit with some
that's what I
questions.
was hoping for and expecting. Well, you said something really early on in the coaching conversation, in the coaching line of conversation we went down, that you had not done this before, right? You'd never been on that side of the microphone and you were scared. And I'm wondering, I'm guessing that you can apply that to a lot of different aspects of life, right? That being scared, right? We were talking off camera, being scared of going and talking about money and to other people that, here locally at like a chamber of commerce kind of event. How did you navigate that, being able to get up in front of these people and talk about your, being vulnerable? How did you navigate being scared and getting over that? How might that help other people that are scared to make their first phone call to a seller or an agent, or scared to put an EMD on a deal, right? Or scared to start that business that they've been dreaming about for years now?
Dude, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I forgot about that moment. So I'm going to go into a couple pieces to it. There was first like me showing up at that live event and actually being MC and part of that experience. I had led other full day events, like one day. I'd not led a 3-day event. Now, very early on, like my mom loved like music. She would like take us out to like the nursing home in town and put our kids out, and like me and my siblings would all be like the Von Trapp family. We'd like sing for people and do stuff, or like we'd go in front of like some youth group or a church, and like she'd come and play the organ for a day and we'd be singing and stuff. Or they put me in a school play. I was like a lead actor for a bunch of stuff. So I've done a bunch of public, like in front of people on a stage experience since I was a little kid. So that part didn't scare me. But to actually lead a bunch of people that are looking for a result in this area for multiple days, it's like, oh, well, I can get in front of a camera for several hours, but to actually be up in front of a large group, it does still bring some things out. But the thing I brought it up for, I want you to know what's behind it, is this is something I learned from improv, like comedic improv. Okay. There's something showing up for me that I feel uncomfortable about, that the audience may also pick up on and is uncomfortable about not being. It's better if I just bring it into the light. Let's just say like I had a really big belly that like is uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, I feel like people are going to be looking at my body and going, that dude's way out of shape. He's got to get some. And they may not think it, but I'm thinking it. Well, if I call it into the space, anyone that might be thinking of it, it's like, oh, they acknowledge it. And you've seen comedic stand-ups like this where somebody will make a fat joke.
Yeah.
Right. And then that humanizes the person that's up there, because we have a laugh together about something that we can both identify and notice.
Yeah.
But it's also vulnerable in that moment too. And so by me calling it into the space and whatnot, it makes me more human and less of the, I'm up here and you're down there. Right. It's like, no, actually we're all very similar in many ways. I might just happen to have a few extra years in this one little category. Okay, cool, whatever. But I'm still just as human, just as fallible with having a judgment or insecurity or something that comes up as you would. And when I do that, that also helps the other person feel like, well, if that person's human, maybe I could too. So if they had many years in real estate and they've made money, or they've done some things in coaching and I want to get into that, or whatever it is, maybe I could too. So I'm also trying to lead a path of possibility by doing that. And this is something that if I'm in a coaching conversation and I need someone to get vulnerable, if I'm not willing to go there, how can I expect somebody else to go there first? So I want to lead with vulnerability first in order to open up that space for somebody to step in with me. But if I just sit back there, kind of like you see these folks that have like their little clipboard and,
hey, I got the same note.
And you're on the couch and you're just like, you just feel like you're just being judged on like your therapist's couch.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't want to share the real stuff, because here I am with this professional and they're not sharing anything vulnerable about their life. However, if I go there first, they're much more likely to come with and open up, and we can actually talk about the real stuff that's going on there, which my work inevitably has to go there. If we're talking about alcohol and the usage, the relationship, I look at that. That's a symptom. I'm choosing that to have a state change. We don't do that with bleach that's hanging out underneath our sink. It's also a chemical compound. It would probably have a real interesting effect, right? It's also something that you could use as a cleaner. I can use alcohol on my surface, on my counter, just like I could use bleach. But we go to that particular substance, that chemical compound, because it creates a state change,
right,
that has very interesting effects. Where we start losing that judgment, we start losing like the rational mind in some ways, where it starts to like soften a bit. Basically, it's like a brute force way to shut down faculties of the mind. Here's this door closed. Here's this. So we have less coordination, less inhibitions, less all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then what I'm left with are all my emotions. So me as the human doing that, that's my emotions. I have to get into the real stuff in order to go there. And so I have to lead first with vulnerability. To connect it, to tie back around. If somebody's feeling discomfort, there's what I call resistance. This comes from a great book, The War of Art.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever? Okay.
It's
not the art of war.
Yeah.
But Stephen Pressfield. So the War of Art. He's a writer. He talks about how like with writing, there's always this like inevitable, always present thing that never goes away, and he calls it the resistance. It's like this. He almost like characterizes it like this external force that's always there. You can't get away from it. It will never just die and go away once you get to a certain level in the game. It's always going to be there. So we'll get resistance in many different ways. So I want it to even be, while somebody might not necessarily feel fear, they may be feeling discomfort in some way. Maybe I don't know it and I'm frustrated about how I don't just know how to do it. Like I've gotten this with people around underwriting. It's not that I'm afraid of it. I'm just frustrated because I can't quite figure it out. Okay. There's resistance in multiple ways. I first want to acknowledge whatever I resist persists. So I want to embrace it. Like, oh, I knew you were going to be there. Just as like me going on stage, that fear, that little butterfly in your stomach thing, like, oh yes, I knew you were going to be there. So what I'm doing is integrating the message of the resistance. Like I feel it as a response. And then I go, oh yeah, this is great. I'm getting feedback in my world that I'm now out of the zone of comfort. And the life we really want to live, like it's all those, not just results, but fulfilling moments, is likely far beyond my zone of comfort. And so in order to get a really fulfilling life, I'm going to go beyond it regardless, in order to find where those things can start showing up. So if I notice it first, accept, I love this. Okay, great. I'm not saying I love the experience, but I love the feedback that it's bringing. Okay. Then what we're going to do, and this is a really helpful piece that I got from a book I'm going to recommend probably at the end when you ask me about books.
Yeah. Okay.
I worked with a gentleman, Todd Herman. Todd Herman's an author. He's also a professional coach that's worked with NHL players, NBA players, NLB players, like a bunch of different sports professionals. And Todd wrote a book called The Alter Ego Effect around a concept that he likes to use. This is most commonly heard as like one of the personas that he created with Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant. Have you ever heard his nickname, the Black Mamba?
Yeah, Mamba mentality.
Yep. Now, the late Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, he had this persona that people knew him for. He came up with that persona with Todd Herman because it embodied characteristics that he wanted to bring to the surface so that when he stepped on the court, he would perform a certain way. If it was just him hanging out with his, kids, or him just like lazy on the couch after Thanksgiving dinner, right? That those characteristics might not be present. So he would need to pull out to get into state, into a frequency, into a way of being that was a professional, that would kick ass. So the Black Mamba encompassed things like swift, striking, smooth, cunning, stealthy, like just a bunch of these different characteristics that he knew when he was on the court, I'm going to crush it. It's game 6, pass me the freaking ball. Like, I'm going to nail this shot.
Yeah.
In order to get into that state, he had to come up with this persona. Now, we can all come up with that persona, not cognitively, feeling it. So I want, even just for a moment, for anyone that's watching this, I want you guys to just close your eyes for a moment. Roll back your shoulders, open the chest, and breathe down in. And I want you to think of an area you might have some resistance to right now. We all have something that I know that you want to do, you're putting off. So just think of that area. Notice the signal that's coming up. It's likely in the body. You can feel it either in the stomach, could be the upper abdomen, or a pit in the lower stomach, or it could be in the chest. Sometimes there's like a numbness or like almost like a shielding. It could be a lump in my throat. Could be a little swirling ball in the solar plexus, wherever you're feeling some discomfort. When you envision that area that you want to step into, let's say it's a result. I want to go get my first deal, or I want to talk to this seller, or I want to go raise capital. Woo! Now I feel it. Nathaniel and I were just talking about that. I was like, you know what? You should go out in your local community and have this conversation with this person. It's like, whoa, what? In person? Real life? Holy cow, I feel it, right? Now that's you being you right now. This is just the state that you're in now. You're operating at a certain level. I'm going to keep your eyes closed. Now I want you to envision you've walked into a little party, little social gathering. There's people sitting around chatting. And I want you to get a sense, a vision of a peripheral. It's like, you know how you can see on the side of your eyes, just like the peripheral. It's not very clear, but I want you to just feel somebody walking in to the left of your peripheral. And you're struck with a feeling like, oh, that person really carries themselves. Their energy, their way of being. It's loose. It's confident. It's fun. It's lively. It's energetic. Right? Okay, I can feel that. That's you 6 to 12 months out. I want you to just notice how she or he, I want you to just notice how they carry themselves 6 to 12 months out. They've been doing that thing. They eat that thing that I just had a response that came up in my system. They eat that for breakfast. They'd be giving me feedback like, come on, this is so good. Like, get over that part. Like, this part's going to be easy. You wait till you get to my level 6 to 12 months from now. There's a whole nother level that you don't even know yet. And you got it. You got all of this. And I want you to just notice how you feel when you just get a sense of that version of you just out there in the same social gathering and you can connect with them. How that person carries themselves, that smile, that grounded confidence. And I want you to empathically map what that feels like in your body. And what if I were to roll those shoulders back? What if I were to put my chin up and I were to step out of that comfort zone, being that version of me, 6 to 12 months out, that's got it. I got all of this related to that area of resistance. I'm alive. I got the energy, the vibration of inspiration and momentum. And when you feel that version of you stepping into whatever that thing was, that's resistance, it's not even there in the same way. It's almost like a loud voice just got very quiet. It's in the background. It's just a little whisper. Because your beingness is so big that it dwarfs it. And when you think about stepping into that area of resistance, you're actually juiced up. You know how it is when you like step into a game that you really love that's going to be like competition? And you're like, yeah, sure, it's going to bring something out of me, but let's go. Like and I'm trying to energetically, through my voice, transfer what that is to step into that way of being. I do this multiple times throughout a day, if not multiple times throughout a week for sure, is noticing where I feel a resistance and step into a version of me and collapsing. So rather than waiting 6 to 12 months out where I've already learned it, I've got it figured out. It's like, oh yeah, totally, I got that. Now I'm just shortcutting that timeline to now. And if I were to tune to that frequency, that state, that beingness, I would likely be able to step into that farther faster. Now come back, open your eyes. And what I want you to do is I want you to just notice that state still in your body. You haven't done anything. You're not out of the comfort zone. You're just mapping who would show up differently. And now I want you to take your finger and I want you to snap that anytime that I snap my finger, I want it to signal that I want to come back to that state. This is what Todd Herman calls an anchor. And Todd Herman likely, learned this from somebody in neurolinguistic programming, like NLP. Like these concepts have been around for a while. But when I snap my fingers, that's an action or a thing I can do to help recall the state that I want to come back to. This is why when basketball players bounce the ball on the free throw line a certain way, they're trying to come back to a state of what it felt like to nail the free throw. It's almost like muscle memory. So what I'm trying to do is come back to a muscle memory of like, yes, get into state. Yes, show up the way that I get to. And when I do that, now I'm not trying to talk my way into do the thing. So when I'm talking about going on stage, or I'm talking about having a conversation with private capital, where I might get rejected, or someone might laugh at me, I stop for a moment before I step into that conversation and ask myself, what state or frequency or beingness am I going to come from? So that when I step into there, what was once out of comfort zone for me before making a state change, now I'm rising in vibration to align with it. And yes, it's a very woo and a very interesting conversation about what does he mean by alignment, frequency, or whatever it is. Don't get hung up on the woo part. Get into the what it feels part. We've all experienced what it feels like to be juiced up in momentum, alive. Like, yes, it's working. I can recall that, bring that farther from the future into the now and start from that place first. So I'm looking at the beingness first before stepping into the doing. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, I know I've taken you quite a while with that, but it was a good question. I think it was worth going there for an exercise.
Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned the woo woo, and I it's all woo woo until you've experienced it. I feel like, at least, right? There's some people that have never experienced what it is to be in a flow state, right? It's funny that you mentioned the basketball, because that's something that I can relate to. I've played basketball my entire life, but yeah, it's a recall thing when you dribble the ball 3 times and move it around your back, whatever silly willy things that they do, right? Karl Malone did like 10, 12, 15 seconds. And so as you're bringing yourself back to that, and the visualization thing too, that stuff's amazing. The more I learned about how we visualize things and how we can become what we're visualizing, the more that I'm terrible at it, but I try to incorporate it. As for the vulnerability thing, right? We got to kind of wrap a little bit here, but Devin made a point about talking to real estate agents. Is somebody that's just making their first phone calls, is it I'm going, hey, Mr. Real Estate Agent, like, you're my first phone call ever? Is that the vulnerability that we're bringing to the forefront? You use the heavy guy that's making a fat joke.
Yep. There's the words, and then there's how I say it.
Okay. Yep.
So let's say it is one of the first few calls I've ever made, and I'm doing direct to agent, like outreaching to an agent. Okay. If I'm like cowarding, oh my gosh, like, this is the first phone call I've ever made, I'm so sorry. Like, they're going to feel really uncomfortable with it too. Like, maybe they'll bring you up just to like pull that awkwardness out of the space. Like, oh, it's okay. No big deal. Like, we'll figure this out. Meanwhile, in the back of their head thinking, what a waste of time.
Yeah. Get me off the phone. Yeah.
Like, how quickly can I move off the phone with this person? Because they're not serious.
Yeah.
I want you to still connect with who do I get to be to step into that space while still feeling it. Now, if somebody asks me if, have you done this before? Or like, how many deals have you done? Or I do not want to BS somebody. I'll get real with them.
Yeah.
You know what? In fact, this is my first agent phone call. However, I'm very excited. Or actually, what it would be is like, if I was in this conversation and let's say you were the realtor and you're like, hey, Kev, awesome. What you're looking at? Oh, I'm looking at this property over here. Awesome. Like, are you an investor? How many deals have you done? And if I'm like, I've never done a deal, I'd just be like, you know what? It's actually my first deal. Do you remember your first deal?
Mm,
I'm trying to find a way to connect and bring them in on it.
yeah.
Okay. So now it's not just I'm over here, I'm awkward, I'm doing some other thing. I'm trying to bring them in. And I want you to, feel that like we can level on something. Now, I'm also bringing in my voice confidence. The confidence isn't I'm so confident because I've done multiple deals. The confidence is coming from I'm committed. I'm going to do what it takes.
Mm.
So it's not confidence from, I have mountains of results. It is a connection to my commitment to find a way. That's something that only I can bring.
Yeah.
Right? I can't give it to you. But if you are committed, you can let somebody know. Yes, I am new. I am new. I've not done this before. Or you know what? It's funny. Like I've not filled out a contract. Or you know what? I've never talked to. This is my first appointment ever been on. Even Pace talks about that. Pace Morby. I was just on a call with a bunch of folks that he was doing a webinar and like, okay, interesting. He was sharing about like how it was that vulnerability that helped him into a deal on his first one.
Oh yeah.
The seller was even like helping him along the way because he was just so forthright. That's been very true in my world. If I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm this amazing person, they're going to feel this awkward thing where I'm trying to build myself up when I don't need to.
Yeah.
So to the point about the vulnerability piece, I only want vulnerability if I'm actually trying to get them to go there.
Okay.
But let's just say on a conversation about business, it might not actually make sense right away to immediately go dump stuff into the space. But if I am nervous and it's going to keep that confidence from showing up, I'm going to call it into the space. So I might go, Nathaniel, I'm a little nervous. This is the first agent call I've ever done. So, just letting you know that so that if I'd miss something or I don't say anything that might be needed, that, that's a cue to you. Bring in a question that might be helpful for you.
I could put myself in we talked about the capital raising thing, and like I could put myself into, you're the first person I've talked to outside of real estate about what we're doing here. I could see myself fumbling about talking about what we're doing and going, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous about this. You're the first person I've talked to outside of my real estate community about what we're doing here, and I get a little excited, because I think we're doing some pretty cool things.
That's perfect. Like I love how you're connecting this. Is like I'm sure other people can relate to, oh, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation because I haven't done it. I don't know what to expect. Are they going to reject me? Is this going to be awkward? Right. So if I was talking to a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer, somebody in my community that may want to invest, they may even have the money to invest, but I've not had a conversation in real life with somebody. I'm all about how you just said it. It's like, you know what? Actually, you're the first person I've brought this up with to open the opportunity that we've been working on. I'm really excited about what we're up to. Yeah. Now for you've even had other conversations like over the internet with people like on Zoom and whatnot. So this isn't technically your first conversation about private capital. Right. For somebody else that's listening, it might be their first one. Now, how I do that is it's the way I'm sharing it that's really important. If I go, you know what, I've never done one of these before. This is awkward. Like the words isn't so much the way to open it up as it is how my body language is, my posture. So I want to be like open body posture. I don't want to like be closed off and turning to the side because I'm avoiding what might be a confrontation. I want to actually open up to them. I might even bring my intonation of voice down rather than, oh my gosh, I've never done this, which is like bringing my voice up. So bringing down shows a little bit more confidence. So the intonation at the end of it. So you know what? This is the first one I've ever done. I haven't talked to somebody, and at the end of it, when you trail off, I haven't talked to somebody in my local community here. You're the first. I'm really excited to be bringing the opportunity to you because you're one of the first person, or like let's say them personally. You're one of the first people I thought of that might be open to this. Like you're the first person that came to mind. So now I'm not just like sharing the vulnerability. I'm actually acknowledging the person. I'm bringing them into it. So now I want to be mindful of time. I know that you got some other things to bring in.
Well, yeah,
we could go for a while.
Yeah. I mean, like every now and then somebody comes on. I'm like, we could just go for 2 hours or 3 hours, but yeah, I know that you're super busy. We have our I'm excited about it. We have our 91-day call today with our operations manager. So we did a 90-day trial period or whatever. And I mean, we knew that she was a good fit, but we're entering into a new space now. We're having this next conversation, so it's
Let's
exciting.
go. She's made it past the 3-month trial.
Yes.
This is good.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
So I know that. How am I going to go about this? Let's do. You've mentioned a couple books already, and I always like to ask. Like 3 books. They don't necessarily have to be real estate related, but have touched you in some way, but moved your needle personally. Business wise, whatever. What 3 books would you?
There's a ton of books that I love. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna relate it to some of the stuff that I talked about today.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
But just because I feel like if you guys resonated with some of the stuff that came up, this might be a more aligned deep dive. So The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. Okay. Be Your Future Self Now by I'm just blanking on his name right now.
It's on the other side of the wall too. I've been reading it. Yeah.
Ben Hardy. I was like, I've met the guy personally. He's like in my phone. I think, did I ever tell you the story how I ran into Ben Hardy?
I don't think so.
We'll have to do it on part 2. We'll do a part 2 conversation. Very interesting. And then another one that I like is this is more about the kind of the vulnerability space. Daring Greatly is one that I really like. I can't remember the author's name.
That's right. I'll Google him.
There's so many books, obviously.
Yeah.
It just depends on the topic.
Unleash and Invest, I think you guys had 4 different books that were out there, and it was fortunate for us that that Brittany and I were both there, so we got to pick 2. The other 2 that we didn't choose, we had already read, so it was just like, oh, okay, we'll pick these 2. Yeah. So I'm at the like application part now of the future self. So I've done the what was it? The truths I just did. What was the first 7? I forget.
I have to go back to. I don't even know it verbatim by. I have it near me, but it's a good book
so far. Yeah. It kind of aligns with the exercise that you had us do right here 10 minutes or so ago. It's like realizing what that future self looks like and bringing it into the present. How can I apply it now to the present? So
there's many books for thousands of years that have all been saying this same broad message. So I could probably rattle off like 20 books that are all kind of on a similar thread about this. Yeah. Like Tony Robbins gets you into like a peak state, or I mean, we could go into a bunch of different ones, but like it's really about connecting to like what is the feeling that's going on for them. This is why people in sales communities have like these like the bullpen where they start the day and they just pitch each other for like 5, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, we're in the state and the experience and we're all doing it. Okay, now get on the phones, or now go knock doors, or now go, because they know that like creating the state is really important on how you show up in the action. But
how would people reach out to you? I know you have a very unique last name there. Yeah.
Schouweiler. It's like a tennis shoe.
Yeah.
So probably best way right now, and I was talking with Nathaniel about this, is I'll have you guys, you can send me a direct message on Facebook. It's just my name, like, Facebook / like Kevin.Schouweiler, SCHOUWEILER.
Spelled it before.
And then I would say send me a direct message, because I'm thinking about putting together a webinar sometime soon about capital raising and talking about not specifically go raise a bunch of money, but like how I like to enter into conversations about giving value and how it's been really helpful for things related to that, of not just talking about returns, but talking about impact. Because while working in affordable housing, yes, it was for the betterment of the community. But like when we talk about like a specific tenant's life that had a result or a change as a result of the housing that gave them the foundation to start living life or start navigating life slightly different. And whether that's somebody that's houseless, somebody that's been in domestic abuse, maybe a single woman now that has 2-3 kids that are looking for housing, or whether it's about substance abuse or trauma, or aged out from the foster care system, like whatever it is, like there's different impacts that can be made. I'm not saying it even has to be affordable housing. It could be about an experience that we're creating with our short-term rentals. It could be about workforce housing that supports the lives day to day of the communities that are like the heart and soul of our economic engine in this town. Like there's different lives. And so when I can paint a story like that, way different when somebody's looking at comparing returns, like, oh, I got 9% my mutual funds at best. And this one's, 10, 11, 12% over here. It's backed by real estate. They're just sizing me up though. When I'm looking at, and it's obviously not apples to apples, but they're going, okay, well, what's the risk reward? What's that? I want to also paint the picture of like, well, who is your mutual fund impacting? Or what is your crypto account impacting right now? It doesn't necessarily bring to mind a person or a set of people that I can physically understand and know. When I do it with the lives of the tenants, this is a very essential service that we bring to the world around housing. Even if it's self-storage, by the way, or even if it's raw land, there can be an impact. Like my parents are moving right now. My gosh, they really need self-storage right now, and to have it close and clean and like, it's safe because the cameras and it's locked up to allow them to go. That grand piano that we've spent years of our life playing and thousands of dollars invested in, like it's safe for now. Like I know that we can come back and bring memories out of that when it's time. Like even that can be an impact for somebody. So figuring out how it connects to humans is one of the best ways to get them to be moved, touched, and inspired to step forward together. When it's not just income, like what's the ROI, but also impact. And if I can get both, far better. Cool. So if that sounds interesting, reach out to me on Facebook, kevin.schouweiler. Send me a direct message, say, I'm interested. That's all you have to say. I'll make sure you guys get the link. I'm not sure what date, what time, but let's just say it's in the next week or two.
Yeah, I will. Schedule permitting, I will be there. Cool. You always have stuff to, value to give, and that sounds like something that aligns a lot with what I'm working on right now. Kevin will also be on our underwriting Zoom 2 Fridays from now at 3 p.m. Eastern. If that's something that you're interested in coming to and learning, he's going to be specifically talking about multifamily investing. So you can message me. I would guess you could probably message Kevin as well, but I have the registration link for that, so you can make sure that you come and learn from him. It's been a pleasure, brother. I knew it would be. Yeah.
Thank you.
We
we can do a part 2 sometime. Like I think we have more to deep dive on, but
absolutely.
Let me say to be continued. We'll bring some more gems next time.
I love it. Appreciate you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy today. We'll see you guys soon.
Later. That was Kevin, Coach Kevin. I appreciate y'all for being here. This is Networking with Nathaniel. We're live again Wednesdays at noon Eastern time. I also do Helping Hands Hour on Thursdays at noon Eastern time. That's designed for you to come in and ask questions. If you have questions around specific deals, role playing, how to talk to sellers, how to talk to agents, just getting your business from where you're at to where you want to go. That's what that is. It's an open Zoom. Come in, raise your hand, ask questions. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about. Typically, whatever questions you have, everybody else that is in the Zoom benefits from it. So, and then, like I just said, we have our underwriting Zoom 3 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. That's again open. Shoot me a message on Facebook and we'll get you that link. It's been a pleasure, guys.